shooting that happened right outside of an In-N-Out restaurant. 3 people were killed, including an In-N-Out employee. Fox's Max Gordon has more tonight on the investigation as the community mourns the lives that were lost.
Our community experienced a tragedy that has shaken us all. Incidents like this leave an impact that reaches far beyond the scene.
8 days. That is how long the In-N-Out on Blue Lakes Boulevard had been open before somebody walked in with a rifle. 8 days of a line that wrapped the building, red aprons, paper hats, fries going out the drive-through window on a Saturday afternoon in a city that had waited years for this. At 2:29 in the afternoon, the calls started coming into the Twin Falls Communications Center. And the dispatchers taking them didn't have to ask what was happening. They could hear it. Screaming in the background. Gunshots underneath it. Inside, a mother waiting on food with her daughters heard the first rounds come from the direction of the kitchen. People went down between the tables. Some locked themselves in the bathrooms. Workers hit the front doors and kept running. Out of the building. Across the sidewalk, into a busy street. And then it moved outside, into a parking lot full of ordinary Saturday. Families in the drive-through line, a man charging his car. That should be the end of the story. It usually is. The shooter keeps going until police arrive, and by then, the number is whatever it's going to be. That is not what happened here. Because somewhere in that drive-through line, a man in a car saw what was coming toward him and reached for a handgun. And at almost the same moment, from somewhere else in that lot, so did a second man. A man who wasn't supposed to be working that day. A man nobody there knew was a state trooper. The gunman stopped. A witness sitting at the stoplight watched it happen and used one word to describe him. Panicked. He said the man started moving strangely, looking around like he'd lost the plan. But that is only half of what happened in that parking lot, because there was a third man, armed, who ran straight at the gunman and made a decision that almost no one can explain, a decision that put him on the ground with a bullet in him and his wife working on him in the open air. And there was one more shot fired in Twin Falls that afternoon that nobody has explained either. 4 days on, the police still won't say what it was aimed at. 3 people did not go home. One of them has still not been named.
We're getting new details on the deadly shooting at an In-N-Out restaurant in Idaho. 3 people were killed, including 2 from California. And tonight, the dramatic video showing armed bystanders opening fire to try to get the gunman to stop. Here's ABC's Trevor Ault.
Twin Falls sits about 130 miles southeast of Boise. Roughly 56,000 people. It is the place the rest of southern Idaho drives to. For the hospital, for the mall, for the chain restaurants that take a decade to arrive. So when In-N-Out announced it was coming, it was genuinely an event. The city council signed off on permits in the fall of 2024. Construction ran through 2025, on the lot where an old Outback Steakhouse used to sit. It opened on July 24th, the company's 441st location, and only the 4th in the entire state. A week later, the crowds still hadn't thinned. Which is why Ashley Garibay was in town. She was 23, from Stockton, California. In-Out was her first job. And according to her family, she fell in love with it almost immediately. She traveled. That was part of what she did. When a new store opened, she went. And she trained the crew that would run it. Her family said her dream was to manage a store of her own one day. She was working the counter on Saturday afternoon, taking care of customers, doing the thing she had actually wanted to do. Somewhere in that same crowd was a 59-year-old man named Christopher Claunch. His sister will tell you later that she still cannot understand why he was there at all. Not that day. Not in that crowd. We'll come back to why. He came in dressed in black, carrying a long rifle. The shooting started inside and moved out, through the doors, through the drive-through lane, into the open lot. Video that surfaced within the hour shows him walking through the middle of it, unhurried. Lane Coyne was 34 years old and sitting at a stoplight just outside when he saw a man with an assault-style rifle come out of the drive-through. Rounds hit the car directly in front of him. He watched the gunman start moving toward his own vehicle. Then, he said, he realized someone in the drive-through line had a handgun and was firing back. That was Jordan Salinas, 35, from Kimberly, just down the road. He has never been officially named by the police. They've said only that a private citizen intervened. But the Idaho statesman identified him, and he's since spoken publicly himself. His description of the moment the gunman turned is about as understated as it gets. He said the man did not like it when bullets started firing both ways, and Salinas wasn't alone. An off-duty Idaho State Police trooper was also there, off shift in the middle of an ordinary weekend. And he engaged the gunman too. Police have never released his name. Coyne, watching from the stoplight, said he could tell the shooter was trying to work out where to go, that he looked panicked, that he was moving erratically. Coyne believes those two men are the reason the shooting stopped where it did. The police believe it too. Chief Matthew Hicks said the actions of the trooper and the citizen drove the suspect away from the scene and prevented further casualties. The Twin Falls County Sheriff, Jack Johnson, went further. He called them true heroes and said their actions saved lives. Then it got stranger. One driver filming from across the street captured the gunman walking up to a white car, opening the driver's door and popping the trunk. He reached inside. The person recording stopped filming and got out of there, because the obvious conclusion was that he was going back for more weapons. Inside the restaurant, an employee had been shot through the back and chest. Coyne watched a co-worker drag her across the parking lot to get her clear. He and the armed stranger, who had just been trading gunfire, stayed with her in the open until paramedics reached her. Down the row, a young man named Dominic Gonzalez was waiting in a vehicle with his two younger brothers while his sister went in to order. When he saw the gunman moving through the lot, he told the boys to get down and threw himself across the front of the car. The whole city was closing in around them by then. Magic Valley Mall went into lockdown with people still inside. The Chick-fil-A shut its doors for the day. The Perrine Bridge, the link out to the interstate, was closed. St. Luke's Hospital put out a critical alert telling the public to stay away unless it was an emergency. And in the middle of all of it, one more man was running the wrong direction on purpose. His name is Austin James. His father, Marcus, told CBS News what his son did. Austin ran toward the gunman, not away, and he was armed. He did not draw his weapon, not because he froze, because he made a calculation in the middle of a mass shooting, that police were seconds out, that they would be arriving into chaos looking for a man with a gun, and that if they found him holding one, they might not have time to work out which one he was. So he closed the distance with his hands empty. His father said Austin came face to face with the shooter. He was shot, critically. His wife was there. So was a friend. Both of them are emergency room nurses. They worked on him on the ground, in that parking lot, before he was rushed to a hospital. Think about what that afternoon actually contained. Two men who fired and are being called heroes for it. And one man 20 feet away who chose not to fire for the exact same reason, to protect the people around him, and paid for it with a bullet. Both of those things are true. They happened at the same time, in the same lot. Only one of them became the headline. The other man in that parking lot was Terry Dudley, a taxi driver. He was charging his car when he was hit, shot twice. He called 911 himself. Then he called a friend who called his son. He was airlifted to Boise. He survived. His family has said he's alive, and they're grateful. 3 people did not. 7 others were wounded. As of the last official update, 2 were treated and released, 3 were stable, and 2 remained in critical condition. The police have been clear that those numbers are preliminary. They could still change. Officially, none of the dead have been named. Not one. The department has withheld every identity out of respect for the families, which means everything we know about them, we know because the families themselves decided to speak. Ashley Garabay's family released a statement. They called her a devoted daughter, sister, auntie, cousin, and friend. They said she was adventurous and driven, that she never let obstacles get in her way, that she lit up a room and had a laugh that was contagious. They said no matter what she was facing herself, she found a way to help other people find the light in the dark. And they said she left this world doing what she loved to do. Lindsay Snyder, who runs In and Out, put out a statement that same night. She said her heart was broken, her chest was heavy, her eyes burned from crying. She said the young woman they lost had been taking care of what she called the company's most important asset, its customers. Then there's Christopher Claunch. Here is what his sister, Kimberly Castaneda, told the New York Times. He loved In-N-Out, genuinely loved it. The kind of person who made a point of stopping at one every single time he was back in California. When the chain finally came to Twin Falls, he was thrilled, and he had been waiting, deliberately. He knew the opening week crowds would be insane, so he decided to let them die down before he went. He was a California native himself. He grew up in Canyon Country in Santa Clarita, but he'd built his life in Idaho. He'd gotten sober, and he worked at a recovery center in Rupert, helping other people do the same thing. His sister spent the 4th of July with him a few weeks before. She told the Times about him grabbing the headband she was wearing, the silly one with little tin wheels on it, and just sitting there, wearing it like it was nothing. When she found out he'd been at that restaurant on that day, she said she couldn't believe it. His partner of 25 years, Teresa Sperry, learned he'd been killed when the sheriff's department came to her house at 12:30 in the morning. That is 2 people. The third person killed at that In-N-Out has still not been publicly identified by anyone. Not the police, not a family. 4 days later, a person died in that parking lot, and the public does not know their name. If you think a name is the least a person is owed, subscribe before you go. It costs you nothing, and stories like this one disappear from the feed within a week. The families are the only ones who don't get to move on. Keeping it in front of people is the one thing any of us can actually do. The man who did this was 24 years old. His name was Chad Williams, and that is nearly the entire file. He attended the College of Southern Idaho from August of 2022 to December of 2023. He did not graduate with a credential. While he was there, he served as a student senator, and in February of 2023, he was removed from that position. The stated reason was procedural. That is currently the only documented conflict in his entire known history, which is exactly why the internet has seized on it. It almost certainly means nothing at all. His family lives in Waddell, Arizona. Police say they are cooperating fully. Chief Hicks, speaking about them, said their hearts are also broken. An initial search of court records in both Idaho and Arizona turned up no criminal cases matching his name and date of birth. One person who knew him has spoken.
On Sunday, the Twin Falls Police Department identified the shooter responsible for claiming 3 lives and injuring 7 others at a shooting at In-N-Out on Saturday. I'm your Twin Falls neighborhood reporter, Lorian Nettleton, learning more about Chad Williams, hearing from a friend of his who attended the College of Southern Idaho with him.
Elijah Mosley lived across the hall from him in a college dorm and considered him a relatively close friend before they lost touch a couple of years ago. He described Williams as an introvert, a pretty chill guy. He said he was never scared of him, never weirded out by him. After the trooper and the citizen fired on him, Williams left the scene. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Police announced that on Sunday and said they are confident he acted alone. And then there is the part almost no one has covered. Minutes after law enforcement arrived, there was a second shooting. An officer involved one. A Twin Falls police officer fired his weapon. Nobody was hit. That officer's actions are now under review, and the investigation has been handed to the Jerome Police Department so that Twin Falls isn't investigating itself. What he was firing at has never been explained. Chief Hicks has been direct about the wall. He said they understand there are many questions, and that they will try to answer as many as they can in time. But he said some details cannot be released at this stage, because releasing them would compromise the investigation. The FBI is assisting. They've opened a digital tip line asking the public to send in any photo, video, or audio from the scene. Hundreds of witnesses are being interviewed, and in the meantime, the silence has been filled by something else. Before the police said anything, before they had confirmed a single fact, a name was already moving across social media, along with a claim about where that man supposedly came from. Both were false. Twin Falls police had to publicly state that the posts identifying the shooter were untrue, and it wasn't one man who got caught in it. 2 men were wrongly named online, one local, one living out of state. Neither had anything to do with any of it. Lieutenant Stephen Gassert said investigators stayed in contact with both of them while they tried to kill the rumor. He explained something people don't think about. Every hour spent chasing a lie is an hour not spent gathering evidence. Officers were pulled off the actual investigation to correct the internet. His line on where the department draws the line is the one worth remembering. He said people have a First Amendment right to post what they want. But he said that right ends at threats and harassment aimed at people who have absolutely nothing to do with this incident. His advice was simple. Consider the source. Just because you saw it on social media does not mean it's true. So consider what was actually happening simultaneously. 2 innocent men were being hunted online. The story was being pulled apart into a political argument about guns before the bodies had been moved, and a 23-year-old from Stockton and a 59-year-old recovery counselor still had no names in public because their families were being notified at midnight by deputies at their front doors. Back in Twin Falls, about 50 therapists were set up at Rock Creek Elementary School for anyone who had been there or who had watched it or who simply couldn't stop thinking about it. Here is everything still missing. Why? Nothing has been released about writings, online activity, mental health history, or any grievance. Investigators say they are still working to determine the full circumstances, including possible motivation. 4 days in, they've said nothing more. Whether it was targeted or random, whether he chose a brand new, packed restaurant deliberately, whether he knew any single person he shot, unanswered, the full sequence. How he moved from inside to the drive-thru to the parking lot to the white car to wherever he was found. Witness accounts vary. There has been no official reconstruction how he got the rifle. Never addressed publicly, not once, who the officer was shooting at and who the third person is. The last 2 men to fire in that parking lot are being called heroes. And by the police chief's own account, they earned it. The man who ran in without drawing his weapon is in a hospital bed. The families of the dead are learning about their own losses from strangers on television. And a whole city is waiting on an answer that may never come. 4 days, 3 funerals to plan, 7 people trying to sleep, 1 name still missing. And while everyone waits, the silence keeps getting filled with the names of people who were never even there. This is an active investigation, and the details are still changing. Everything here reflects what officials, witnesses, and families had confirmed as of August 4th, 2026. And if any part of this story hit close to home for you, you don't have to sit with that on your own. In the United States, you can call or text 988 any hour of any day, and there will be someone there.